My name is Andrew. I'm 56 years old, and I'm a professor of history at San Francisco State University. My wife, Jennifer, is 52 years old and is a senior marketing director at a leading technology company. We have been married for 30 years and have 3 grown children. From an outsider's perspective, our life seems impeccable, living in a luxury condo overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, a successful career, and great kids. But life is never as simple as it seems. It was a normal Wednesday, and I had just finished a day of instruction. As I walked out of the school building, the setting sun was coloring the Golden Gate Bridge a golden red. I couldn't help but stop and take a picture and send it to Jennifer. "What a beautiful sunset today. Reminds me of our honeymoon," I wrote in my message. Jennifer quickly replied with a smiley face emoji, but no more words. When I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" I asked casually, while pouring myself a glass of red wine. "It was okay. Had a full day of meetings." Jennifer replied briefly, continuing to chop vegetables without looking up. I noticed a hint of exhaustion in her tone, but didn't think much of it. "The kids are coming over for dinner tonight," Jennifer added. "Lily just got back from a business trip to New York, and Jason and Emma said they'd be over too." I nodded, with some anticipation in my heart. Since the kids had all moved out, there were fewer and fewer opportunities for the family to get together. I walked to the living room, my eyes sweeping over the family portrait hanging above the fireplace. It was taken 5 years ago during a vacation in Hawaii, and everyone had a happy smile on their face. I couldn't help but wonder if we could still take pictures like that now. At dinner, the mood at the table was quite cordial, with Lily gushing about what she'd seen in New York, Jason complaining about the difficulties his startup was having, and Emma, our youngest daughter, excitedly planning her graduate school applications. "Mom, how's your blog going these days?" Emma asked out of the blue. "I saw that your post from last week was shared by so many people." I just remembered that Jennifer started this blogging thing a couple months ago. At first I thought it was just a whim for her, but I didn't realize that she actually stuck with it. Jennifer's eyes lit up for a second. "Oh, it's quite good. I recently wrote an article on how working women can balance career and family, and it was well received." "I read that article," Lily interjected. "It was really well written, Mom. I thought a lot of the issues you talked about resonated." I looked at Jennifer with some surprise. When did she become interested in these topics? And it looked like she was writing pretty well. I realized that I probably didn't know as much about my wife as I thought I did. "Andrew, what do you think?" Jennifer asked me suddenly, a hint of anticipation in her eyes. I was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. I think it's pretty good. But Jennifer, don't you think you've balanced your career and family pretty well?" Jennifer's expression was lost for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. "Yeah, we did do well," she said softly, then quickly changed the subject. After dinner, the kids left one by one. There was some silence as Jennifer and I cleared the table together. "Great dinner today." I tried to break the silence. "I'm so glad the kids were able to come." Jennifer nods. "Yeah, I'm glad too." She paused, then said, "Andrew, did you ever feel—" "Never mind. It's nothing." I looked at her quizzically. "What's wrong? What are you trying to say?" Jennifer shook her head. "It's okay. Maybe I'm just a little tired. I'm going to go rest now, and you remember to put the dishes in the dishwasher." As I watched Jennifer's back disappear behind the bedroom door, I stood in the kitchen and felt a sudden, inexplicable pang of unease. Our marriage had always been stable, but lately, was something quietly changing? I shook my head, trying to shake the thought away. Maybe I was overthinking it, and Jennifer was just a little tired from working so much. I stepped out onto the balcony overlooking San Francisco at night. The city was lit up like stars, and the Golden Gate Bridge loomed in the distance. The city had seen Jennifer and I through our entire marriage, from the passionate love of our youth to the— I don't know how to describe it. Maybe that's how life is, plain with a hint of uncertainty. When I got back to the bedroom, Jennifer was already asleep. I lay gently beside her. After 30 years, we've gotten to know each other so well that we sometimes overlook the changes in each other. Maybe tomorrow, I should have a nice chat with Jennifer and find out what she's been thinking about lately. With that thought in mind, I slowly fell into sleep. The next morning, I woke up and Jennifer was no longer in bed. This was becoming more and more common lately. She was always up early, sometimes even leaving the house before I woke up. I rubbed my eyes and looked at the alarm clock on my nightstand. It was only just 6:30. I walked into the kitchen and found Jennifer preparing coffee. She was wearing yoga clothes and her hair was tied back in a casual ponytail. "Good morning," I yawned. "You're so early today?" Jennifer handed me a cup of coffee. "Well, I'm meeting Sophie for a yoga class." "Sophie? That name seems to ring a bell." "Oh, is it a colleague from your company?" "No, it's a friend I met at the yoga studio," Jennifer said as she slipped a notebook into her bag. "She's a freelance writer who writes a lot for women's magazines." I nodded, not knowing what to say. Jennifer had made a lot of new friends lately, mostly ones I didn't recognize. "So, do you guys have any plans after class?" "We'll probably go get a cup of coffee and talk." Jennifer looked at her watch. "I gotta go or I'll be late." "See you tonight." Before I could answer, Jennifer hurried out the door. I stood in the kitchen, the cup of coffee she had poured for me in my hand, and suddenly felt an inexplicable loss. That afternoon, I was in my office grading a student's paper. My cell phone suddenly vibrated with a message from Jennifer. "Sorry, I might be late tonight. Sophie introduced me to a very interesting feminist writer, and we have a dinner date to talk." I stared at the screen of my phone for a while. Jennifer was never the type of person who was keen on socializing, at least not as far as I remembered. But lately, she always seemed to be busy. There were always all sorts of events and parties. I hesitated, but replied, "Okay, be safe." "Do you need me to save you dinner?" "No, you can eat by yourself. Don't wait for me." Jennifer replied quickly. That night, I was sitting alone at the dining room table, facing a serving of spaghetti for two. The news was playing on the TV, but my mind was completely elsewhere. What was wrong with Jennifer? Her recent changes had confused and disturbed me. I didn't hear the key in the lock until after 10 p.m. Jennifer came in softly, obviously not wanting to wake me. "Talking pretty late," I said, getting up from the couch and startling her. "Andrew, why are you still up?" Jennifer set her bag on the cabinet in the foyer. "Sorry, we were so involved in the conversation we didn't pay attention to the time." I approached her and smelled a hint of red wine. "Did you have a nice chat?" Jennifer's eyes lit up. "It was fun. That writer was really insightful. We talked a lot about women's roles in the workplace and at home." "You know," she said. I tried to listen to Jennifer's rambling account of their discussion, but honestly, I couldn't follow her train of thought at all. The topics were too foreign to me. So I was thinking maybe I should write more about that. Jennifer finally stopped to catch her breath. That sounds good," I said grudgingly. "But Jennifer, don't you think you've been getting a little too into all this stuff?" Jennifer's expression suddenly became a little defensive. "What do you mean these things?" "Andrew, these are important topics." I know," I said hurriedly. "I just think you seem to have changed a lot lately. We hardly spend any time together anymore." Jennifer sighed. "Andrew, people change all the time. I'm just trying something new and exploring myself. What's wrong with that?" I didn't know what to say to that. Jennifer was right. People do change. But her change came so suddenly that it caught me a little off guard. "There's nothing wrong with it," I finally said. I just wish I knew more about what you're thinking right now." Jennifer's expression softened a bit. She came over to me and gave me a gentle hug. "I know I've probably been neglecting you a bit lately. Let's wait until this weekend, and we'll talk, okay?" I nodded but didn't have much to look forward to in my mind. Jennifer said she wanted to talk, but I wasn't sure we'd be able to talk as much as we used to. That night, I lay in bed listening to Jennifer pounding on the keyboard in her study. She said she was inspired to write a blog post while the iron was hot. I tossed and turned and couldn't sleep, my mind full of questions. What was Jennifer after? Was she still the same Jennifer I knew? And should I, too, make some changes? With these questions in mind, I slowly fell into a restless sleep. Outside the window, the San Francisco night was still mesmerizing, but in our bedroom, something seemed to be quietly changing. The weekend was fast approaching. I was expecting Jennifer to fulfill her promise to have a nice talk with me, but things didn't go the way I expected. Saturday morning, I woke up to find Jennifer had left the house. There was a note on the nightstand, "Going to a women's empowerment seminar. Be back tonight. Love you." I stared at the love you with mixed feelings. The words seemed to be getting rarer and rarer lately. I decided to go to the school office to take care of some work. Maybe that would be a distraction. When I got home in the afternoon, Jennifer wasn't back yet. I wandered aimlessly around the house and finally sat down in the den. Jennifer's laptop was sitting on the table with the screen still lit up. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I couldn't help but glance at the screen. It was the back end of Jennifer's blog. I ghost-clicked on the draft of her latest post. The title is Out of the Comfort Zone of Marriage, a middle-aged woman's self-awakening. My heart suddenly beat faster. The article began, "After 30 years of marriage, I thought I had found happiness. But lately I've begun to question, is this really the life I want? Or am I just trapped in a gilded cage?" As I continued to read on, my palms began to sweat. In the article, Jennifer details her recent journey, her dissatisfaction with the status quo, and her desire for a new life. She writes about feeling tied down by family responsibilities and losing herself. Just as I was halfway through the book, a voice from behind me said, "Andrew, what are you doing?" I jerked around to see Jennifer standing in the doorway, anger and disappointment on her face like I'd never seen before. "Jennifer, I was incoherent and tried to explain, but I knew I was in the wrong. "How could you peek at my private writing?" Jennifer's voice was shaking. "This is too much." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." I stood up and tried to get closer to her. "It's just..." "Jennifer, why didn't you tell me about this? Do you really think our marriage is a cage?" Jennifer took a deep breath as if trying to control her emotions. "Andrew, I was going to talk to you tonight. But now, I don't know what to say." "So let's talk now," I said. "Jennifer, tell me what's wrong with you. Haven't we always been good?" Jennifer shook her head. "You think we're fine, but the truth is, I haven't felt truly happy in a long time." "Andrew, have you ever thought that maybe we've both changed, but our relationship is stagnant?" I felt a wave of vertigo. Jennifer's words felt like a punch in the gut, shattering the illusions I'd been harboring. So what do you want?" I asked with difficulty. Jennifer was silent for a moment, then said, "I need some time and space to think. Andrew, I'm thinking about going on a writing retreat." "A writing retreat?" I repeated. "When? For how long?" "Next month," Jennifer said. "In Tuscany, Italy, for a month." I felt a pang of panic. "A month? Jennifer's going away for a month? But, but isn't our anniversary next month?" Jennifer's expression wavered a bit, but quickly regained its firmness. "I know, Andrew, but I really need this opportunity. It's important to me." We just stood there, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, Jennifer said softly, "I'll go get dinner ready," then turned and left the den. The atmosphere that night was unusually heavy. We barely made it through dinner, and then each went back to our corners. I sat in the living room and pretended to watch TV, but my mind was full of Jennifer's peace and our conversation. Over the next few days, the tension between us grew. Jennifer began to work on her trip, while I watched, overwhelmed, as she packed her bags. I tried to talk to her, but every conversation ended in an argument. It was finally the day of Jennifer's departure. We stood in the send-off area of the airport, awkwardly facing each other. "So, bon voyage," I said dryly. Jennifer nodded. "Thanks, Andrew, She was about to say something, but finally just said, "I'll be in touch often." As I watched Jennifer's back disappear through the security checkpoint, I felt a wave of loneliness and fear I had never felt before. I wondered what would become of our relationship when she returned. Or would she even come back? On the drive home, the Golden Gate Bridge shone in the sunlight, but my heart was cloudy. I suddenly realized that perhaps our marriage, like this bridge, seemed strong but was actually fragile. And now, the bridge of our marriage is facing an unprecedented test. The first week after Jennifer left, I felt like I was thrown into a strange world. Our apartment was suddenly empty, and even with the TV on, I couldn't hide the unsettling silence. Over the weekend, Lily came to visit me. She frowned as soon as she walked in the door. "Dad, why is your place so messy?" It was only then that I noticed that the coffee table was piled high with takeout containers, and the dishes in the sink had been piling up for days. "Oh, I've been a little busy lately," I make up a casual excuse, but Lily clearly doesn't believe it. She sighed and started cleaning up the living room. Dad, just because mom is gone doesn't mean you can stop taking care of yourself. I looked at my daughter's busy back and suddenly felt a pang of guilt. After Jennifer left, I seemed to have lost the focus of my life, and I didn't even bother to do the most basic household chores. Have you been in touch with your mom? I asked tentatively. Lily stopped what she was doing and turned to look at me. Yes, we talk a few times a day. Dad, what about you? I shook my head. Ever since Jennifer arrived in Italy, communication between us has become extremely limited. The occasional text message is mostly a dry greeting. How does she look? I asked. It's pretty good, Lily said, and seems to be having a good time. She said the scenery over there was beautiful, and she met a lot of interesting people. I nodded, unsure of what to say. Jennifer seemed to be doing well, and here I was getting worse by the day. Later that night, I worked up the courage to send Jennifer a message. I hope you're doing well over there. The kids miss you. Jennifer quickly replied, Thanks for asking. It's great here and I'm learning a lot. How are you doing? I stared at the screen of my cell phone, unsure of how to respond. Am I good? I'm not good at all. But I can't say that, can I? I'm fine, I finally replied, focusing on work and writing. After sending this message, I suddenly realized that this might be the first time I've ever lied to Jennifer. Over the next few days, I began to force myself to pull myself together. I got back into teaching and researching, and even started trying to do some of the chores that used to be Jennifer's responsibility. I learned to use the washing machine, though I nearly flooded the entire laundry room the first time. I tried cooking, though it often ended in ordering takeout. One day, while organizing my bookshelf, I found one of Jennifer's old journals. I hesitated for a long time, but finally opened it. Jennifer wrote about how much she loved me and how much she was looking forward to our future. We were so young and hopeful. Looking at those yellowed pages, I couldn't help but wonder, when did we start to drift apart? Was it because I was too focused on my work and neglected Jennifer's needs? Or were we both so used to the status quo that we forgot to run a relationship? 3 weeks have gone by, and some photos are starting to appear on Jennifer's Instagram. Tuscan vineyards, old castles, and a group of happy-looking people. In one of the photos, I noticed a young man standing next to Jennifer, and they were both smiling brightly for the camera. That smile stung me. How long had it been since I'd seen Jennifer smile like that? I called Jason and asked him if he'd had any contact with Jennifer lately. Yeah, Jason said. Mom seems to be in good shape. She said she's writing a book, like about women's self-awakening or something. Oh, I said, not sure how to react. When did Jennifer start writing books? Why was I the last to know? After hanging up the phone, I stood on my balcony and watched the lights of the Golden Gate Bridge twinkle in the night. I suddenly realized that maybe the problem wasn't that Jennifer had changed, but that I hadn't been changing. I had always thought our marriage was stable, but now it seemed that that stability might just be a stagnation. One night during the 4th week, I received a voice message from Jennifer. My heart beat faster. It was the first time she had sent me a voice message since she left. Hey, Andrew. Jennifer's voice came through the phone with a hint of emotion I couldn't understand. I've come across some interesting things. I met a writer named Alex, and he's been giving me a lot of advice on writing. I think I may have found my voice, Andrew. She paused. I'm not sure I'm the same Jennifer you know anymore. We'll talk later, okay? The message came to an abrupt end, leaving me alone in the silent living room. At a loss for words, Jennifer's words were like a sharp knife, slicing through the last thin layer of illusion between us. I slowly walked to my study, turned on my computer, and began to write an email. The recipient was Jennifer. Dear Jennifer, I wrote, I am so happy to hear that you have found your voice. Maybe you're right, you're not the Jennifer I know anymore. But Jennifer, I want you to know that I'm trying to change too. I wrote and wrote, pouring all my feelings from the past month into this email. When I finished, my finger hung above the send button, hesitating for a long time. In the end, I clicked save as draft. Maybe, when Jennifer gets back, we can talk face to face. Maybe then, I can be a new Andrew, too. The day Jennifer returned, it was a rare drizzle in San Francisco. I stood in the arrivals hall of the airport and looked into the bustling crowd looking for Jennifer. When I finally saw her, I froze. Jennifer had cut her hair short and dyed it a dark brown color I'd never seen before. She wore a loose linen shirt and a new, I've never seen it before look on her face. She looked different. "Hi, Andrew," Jennifer said as she approached, a hint of emotion in her voice that I couldn't read. "Welcome home," I said, reaching out to hug her, but Jennifer just patted my shoulder. A strange silence filled the car on the way home. I tried to break the awkwardness. "So, how was Italy?" Jennifer's eyes lit up. "Fantastic. Andrew, you can't imagine how beautiful it is there. The Tuscan sun, the vineyards, and those old castles. I feel like I've come back to life." I nodded, unsure of what to say. Jennifer rambled on about her experiences in Italy while I felt an inexplicable sense of detachment. "And Alex," Jennifer continued, "he's given me a lot of writing advice. Andrew, I've decided I'm going to publish my book." I snapped my head around to look at her. "What book?" Jennifer took a deep breath. "A book about a middle-aged woman's self-awakening. Andrew, this month has made me realize that there are still so many dreams I want to fulfill." My grip on the steering wheel tightened involuntarily. "Alex. Books. The dream." The words swirled in my head, each one like a hammer blow. When we got home, Jennifer began to unpack. I stood in the bedroom doorway and watched her put one unfamiliar piece of clothing into the closet. "Jennifer," I finally said, "I want to talk to you." Jennifer stopped what she was doing and turned to look at me. "Yeah, let's talk." The conversation that followed was like a storm. We discussed the past, we discussed the present, we discussed the future. Jennifer said she needed more space and freedom to pursue her dreams. I, on the other hand, expressed my confusion and hurt. "You know what, Andrew?" said Jennifer finally. "I think we all need some time and space to think. Maybe I should move out for a while." I felt a wave of vertigo. "What? Jennifer, you just got back and you're moving out?" Jennifer sighed. "Andrew, I didn't just make this decision. This month has made me realize that I need a space of my own to write, to think." I stood there, feeling the world crumble beneath me. Jennifer was moving out. Our marriage, once a fortress I thought was impregnable, was now so fragile. Over the next few days, we carefully moved through the same space like two strangers. Jennifer started looking for apartments online, while I pretended not to notice. One evening our children came over for dinner. The mood at the table was unusually heavy. So, Jason finally broke the silence. "Mom, are you really moving out?" Jennifer put down her knife and fork. "Yeah, I found a nice little apartment right downtown." Lily frowned. "But why?" "Mom, is something wrong with you and Dad?" Jennifer and I exchanged a look. "Kids," I spoke, "your mom and I. We just need some time to think. It doesn't mean we're getting a divorce or anything." Emma, our youngest daughter, burst into tears. "But this sounds like the beginning of a divorce." Jennifer reached out and hugged Emma. "Honey, it's not like that. I just needed some space to write my book, to find myself. That doesn't mean I don't love you or your father." Watching Jennifer comfort the kids, I suddenly realized that maybe we've both changed. Jennifer is no longer the woman who was content with her role as a housewife, and I'm no longer the one who takes marriage for granted. The day Jennifer moved out, I stood at the window and watched her put the last box in the car. As she turned and waved at me, I felt a strong sense of loss. "I'll be in touch often," Jennifer said. "Andrew, I hope you understand." I nodded, unable to speak. Watching Jennifer's car disappear around the corner, I suddenly felt a loneliness I had never felt before. Our home, the place that was once filled with laughter, was now left with just me. That night, I sat in my study, staring at my computer screen. I opened a new document and began to write. Maybe, through writing, I could understand what Jennifer was feeling. Maybe, through writing, I could find a connection between us. Outside the window, it's nighttime as usual in San Francisco. The lights of the Golden Gate Bridge twinkle in the distance, and our story, it seems, is heading in an unknown direction. The first week after Jennifer moved out, I felt like I was thrown into a strange world. I woke up every morning and saw the empty bed next to me, and I was in a trance for a moment. I began to understand what Jennifer meant by needing space, a loneliness that was both unsettling and inexplicably exciting. I started trying things that I had never done before. For example, I signed up for a weekend cooking class. In the first class, I clumsily chopped onions and tears kept falling down my face. "Don't worry," laughed a lady next to me. I did the same thing the first time I cut an onion. I looked up at her and suddenly realized that this was the first time in a long time that I had had such an easy conversation with a stranger. "I'm Andrew," I said. "And you?" "Kate," she replied with a smile. "Nice to meet you, Andrew." When I got home that night, I texted Jennifer, "Learned to make pasta today. The sauce was a little salty, but at least it didn't burn the kitchen down." Jennifer quickly replied, "Wow, that's amazing. I'll try it next time." I stared at the screen of my phone, unsure of how to respond. What kind of relationship are we in now? A couple in separation? Friends? I finally just sent a smiley face emoji back. Jason came to see me over the weekend. He looked around and said in surprise, "Dad, you redecorated?" It was then that I noticed that without realizing it, I did change a few things. The layout of the living room had changed. There were more new books on the shelves, and even the curtains had changed to my favorite dark blue color. Sort of," I said, "just felt like some changes were needed." Jason looked at me thoughtfully. "Dad, you've been looking good lately." I froze for a moment and then laughed. "Yeah? Probably because I started working out." That's right. After Jennifer left, I started running along the bay every early morning. At first it was to fill the morning void, but later it became a pleasure. Looking at the Golden Gate Bridge in the morning sunlight, I often think of Jennifer. How is she doing? Is her new life what she wants it to be? One day I met Kate on my run. She was also running in the morning. We chatted a bit and then ran the rest of the way together. After that, it became an unspoken agreement. Every Wednesday and Friday, we would run together in the morning and then have a cup of coffee at a nearby cafe. Kate is a middle school teacher and single. We talked a lot, but I didn't tell her about Jennifer. For some reason, I didn't feel ready. A month later, Jennifer invited me to dinner at her new apartment. "The kids are coming too," she said over the phone, "and I want everyone to see the progress on my new book." Walking into Jennifer's apartment, I was immediately drawn to the huge chalkboard on the wall. It was densely filled with outlines and inspirations. Jennifer looked radiant as she excitedly showed us her work. "So this book isn't just about my experience," Jennifer says. "It's about all women who are finding themselves in midlife." I watched Jennifer ramble on about her writing project and suddenly realized that I hadn't seen her this passionate in a long time. It made me both happy and a little sour. After dinner, the kids left first. I was about to say goodbye when Jennifer suddenly said, "Andrew, can you stay for a minute? There's something I want to talk to you about." My heartbeat quickened. Jennifer handed me a glass of wine and then looked me straight in the eye. "Andrew, I want to thank you. Thank you for giving me this space and time." I didn't know what to say, except to nod. Jennifer continued, "I know this must be hard for you, but Andrew, I think it's good for both of us. Have you noticed that we're communicating more now than ever before?" I thought about it for a while and realized she was right. Even though we no longer live together, we exchanged a few messages almost every day to talk about our respective lives. "Jennifer," I took a deep breath, "I have something to say too. During this time, I've been thinking about our relationship as well. I realized that maybe we were so used to each other's presence before that we neglected each other's needs instead." Jennifer nodded, a glimmer of relief in her eyes. "That's right, Andrew. We all need to reacquaint ourselves and each other." We talked for a long time about the changes in each of us and our expectations for the future. As I was getting ready to leave, Jennifer suddenly asked, "Andrew, have you recently met anyone?" I froze for a moment, thinking of Kate, but I just shook my head. "No, what about you?" Jennifer laughed. "I'm all about writing right now. I don't have time to think about that." Walking out of Jennifer's apartment, I felt mixed up inside. We seemed to be entering a new phase in our relationship that was both familiar and strange at the same time. The next morning I went for my usual run. When I saw Kate, I hesitated and then walked up. "Hi, Kate," I said. "There's something I want to talk to you about." The silhouette of the Golden Gate Bridge was becoming clearer in the sunlight. I took a deep breath and prepared to tell my story and Jennifer's. For some reason, I felt like this was a new beginning. Fall is creeping up on us, and the leaves in Golden Gate Park are beginning to yellow. The relationship between Kate and I changed subtly during this season, from a morning running partner to a friend who often had dinner together. We went from being morning running buddies to friends who often had dinner together. Kate was a good listener, and I gradually opened up to her and told her the story of Jennifer and I. I was very happy to have her as my partner. "So, you guys are now?" Kate asked cautiously one night. I sighed. "Honestly, I'm not so sure. We haven't talked about divorce, but there's no sign of getting back together either." Kate nodded thoughtfully. "Andrew, have you ever thought that maybe this state of affairs is an answer in itself?" I froze. Kate's words were like a wake-up call that made me start to re-examine my relationship with Jennifer. Just then, Jennifer sent me a message. "Andrew, my book is almost done. I'd like to ask you to be the first reader. Would you be willing?" I stared at the screen of my phone, my heart racing. This felt like a turning point, but I wasn't sure which direction it was a turn in. "You should go," Kate said softly, as if reading my mind. The next day, I arrived at Jennifer's apartment. She looked both excited and nervous, holding a stack of printed manuscripts. "Here," she said, handing me the manuscript. "I know this might be a little difficult to read, but I want you to look at it as a reader, not just as my husband." I nodded and began to flip through. As I read deeper, I felt a surge of shock. Jennifer dissected herself without reservation in the book. Her confusion, her struggles, her growth, all laid bare on the page. I saw a Jennifer I never really knew. After reading the last page, I looked up to find Jennifer looking at me nervously. "Jennifer," I whispered, "this book. Fantastic. You put yourself out there completely." Jennifer sighed in relief, her eyes glistening with tears. "Really? You don't think it's too much?" I shook my head. "No, it's very real, Jennifer. After reading this book, I feel like I finally understand you." We fell into a long silence. Finally, Jennifer spoke up. "Andrew, I'd like to talk to you about recent events." The ensuing conversation lasted all afternoon. We talked about the good old days, the loss and confusion in our marriage, and how each of us had changed and grown over the past few months. "Andrew," Jennifer finally said, "I love you, and that's never changed. But we've all changed, haven't we?" I nodded, feeling a bitter relief. "Yes, we've all changed, Jennifer. I love you too. But maybe our love is no longer fit for marriage." The moment I said the words, I felt a strange sense of relief. A flash of surprise flashed in Jennifer's eyes, but it quickly turned to understanding. "You're right," she said softly. "Maybe we should officially end this marriage, but not as losers, but as an integral part of each other's lives." We decided to have dinner with the kids and tell them about our decision. That night, at our favorite seaside restaurant, facing the lights of the Golden Gate Bridge, we explained everything to the kids. Surprisingly, the kids seemed to be prepared. "Honestly," Jason said, "seeing the changes you guys have made over the last couple months, we figured it might come to this." Lily added, "The important thing is that we see you all getting happier. That's what's important, isn't it?" Emma, our youngest daughter, had tears in her eyes, but she was strong enough to say, "As long as you're still our mommy and daddy, nothing else matters so much." Jennifer and I smiled at each other with gratitude and love in our hearts. Over the next few days, we began to work on the legal process of divorce. But rather than an end, it was a new beginning. Jennifer's book was published, and the response was overwhelming. I also began writing essays on history and life, which were occasionally published in the local newspaper. One day I met Kate at a coffee shop. "Hey," I said, "how's it going?" Kate smiled and said, "Pretty good. How about you?" "Things with Jennifer. All right." I nodded. "We're fine. In fact, we're probably better than ever." Kate looked me in the eye. "So, what about us?" I took a deep breath. "Kate, you're a wonderful person, but I think I need some time." Kate nodded understandingly. "I understand. Anyway, we're still friends, right?" "Of course," I said with a smile. "Forever morning running buddies." Stepping out of the cafe, I took a slow stroll along the bay. The Golden Gate Bridge glistened in the sunlight, just like my story with Jennifer, changed in form, but still strong and beautiful. I pulled out my cell phone and sent Jennifer a message. I just ran into Kate. Suddenly, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to reacquaint ourselves with each other. Jennifer quickly replied, I'm thankful for you too, Andrew. Our story isn't over, it's just turning over a new leaf. I laughed and put my phone back in my pocket. Yes, our story continues. Although no longer married, we are still one of the most important people in each other's lives. Our marriage may be over, but our love and friendship will last forever. Like the city of San Francisco, our relationship went through earthquakes and fog, but in the end, we found our own balance. The Golden Gate Bridge still stands, and Jennifer and I, too, will continue to walk side by side in new ways. It's been almost a year since the divorce was finalized. Time flies, I thought, as I straightened my tie. Today was Jennifer's book signing, and she had invited me to attend as a special guest. I stood in front of the mirror and took a good look at myself. I seemed to have changed quite a bit again in the past year. There were more silver strands in my hair, and the wrinkles at the corners of my eyes were a little deeper, but my eyes were clearer than ever. The doorbell rang. It was probably Jason picking me up. We were supposed to go to a book signing together. Hey, Dad. Jason walked in and sized me up. Not bad. Looks like I don't have to worry about you embarrassing Mom. I smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Thanks for the compliment. Your mom must be nervous today. Jason shrugged. It's okay. You know, she's a famous writer now. Yes, the response to Jennifer's book has been overwhelming, and she has become a highly regarded female author. I often feel a strange sense of pride when I watch her talk about it on TV. By the time we arrived at the bookstore, there were already quite a few people in line. Jason and I went in through the back door and saw Jennifer making final preparations backstage. Hey, I whispered, ready? Jennifer turned around with a look of nervousness and excitement on her face. Oh, Andrew, you're here. I'm a little nervous. Don't worry, I said, you'll do fine. Remember how nervous you were on our first date? This is nothing compared to that time. Jennifer laughed. Gosh, don't mention it. I thought you'd gotten over that awkward date a long time ago. We smiled at each other as if we had traveled back in time more than 30 years. In that moment, I felt as if the connection between us was stronger than ever. The book signing began. I sat on stage and watched as Jennifer confidently answered questions from readers, sharing some of the stories behind her writing from time to time. When she talked about marriage and personal growth, our eyes met in the crowd and she gave me a grateful smile. Actually, Jennifer said, the book was heavily inspired by my own experiences. I'd like to give a special thanks to my ex-husband Andrew. She gestures in my direction, and I feel eyes all around me. Without his understanding and support, I may never have had the courage to begin this journey of self-discovery. After the book signing, we celebrated as a family by going to a nearby restaurant where Jennifer sat across from me, Lily and Emma on either side of her, and Jason sat next to me. To Mom's new book, Lily said, raising her glass. To new beginnings, I added. We clinked glasses and smiled at each other. At this moment, I suddenly realized that even though Jennifer and I were no longer husband and wife, we were still family. Our relationship may have changed, but that deep feeling and bond has never gone away. After dinner, Jennifer and I took a walk home together. The Golden Gate Bridge loomed in the night, and the sea breeze blew gently. Andrew, Jennifer said suddenly, thank you for coming today. It means a lot to me. I nodded. I'm glad to be here. Jennifer, I'm so proud of you. We stopped at the bottom of Jennifer's apartment building. For a moment, I felt the urge to hug her, but in the end, I just patted her shoulder. Good night, Jennifer. Good night, Andrew. Watching Jennifer disappear down the hallway, I take a deep breath and turn in the opposite direction. Passing a coffee shop, I saw Kate reading a book inside. I hesitated and pushed the door open and walked in. Hi, Kate. She looked up and smiled in surprise. Andrew, what a coincidence. We chatted for a while and I told her about Jennifer's new book signing. Kate listened intently and then said, It looks like you guys have found a new way to get along. I'm so happy for you. I nodded, yeah, life is always full of surprises. As I walked out of the coffee shop, my cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Jennifer. I forgot to mention earlier, next Tuesday is Lily's birthday. How about we get together and prepare a surprise for her? I smiled and replied, good idea. I'll take care of the cake and you organize the venue? Putting my phone back in my pocket, I looked up at the sky. A few stars loomed over the city lights. I felt a sudden rush of relief and anticipation. Yes, my marriage to Jennifer is over. But our story, our family, our friendship continues in a new way. Just like the city of San Francisco, which has gone through countless rebuilds and changes, yet has always maintained its unique charm. I took a deep breath and took a step toward home. Tomorrow is a new day and I, for one, am ready for the next chapter in my life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.